What if I told you the most important recipe ever written wasn't for bread or wine, but for beer? And the recipe wasn't found in a cookbook, but in a 4,000-year-old hymn to a goddess. This isn't a story about a drink. It's a story of how humanity's oldest brew didn't just quench thirst. It built civilization. Our story begins in ancient Sumer, around 2000 BC. A brewer, likely a woman, recites a prayer to Ninkasi, the goddess of beer. The words she speaks are a recipe describing how to soak grain, create a mash, and collect a sweet liquid that flows out like the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. This wasn't just happy hour. This was survival. It might be one of the oldest inventions in human history. Forget the wheel. Beer is likely older. We have evidence of fermented grain on a 7,000-year-old clay shard from Iran. This means beer existed before many societies had pottery, let alone writing. So, how did it happen? Someone probably left a bowl of grain porridge out in the rain. Wild yeast from the air got in, started bubbling, and fermentation began. And one brave or curious person decided to taste it. Beer wasn't invented, it was discovered. The magic ingredient was yeast, a tiny fungus that eats sugar and creates alcohol and CO2. For thousands of years, no one knew what it was. They just saw the results and called it a miracle. But here's the game changer. You can't store fruit for a year, but you can store grain. This made beer a reliable, storable source of calories. Early beer was thick, nutritious, and safe. In a world of questionable water sources, fermented beer was often cleaner and safer to drink, making it essential for the first cities. It wasn't just food, it was money. In ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, workers building the pyramids were paid in beer. That's right, beer. We're talking a daily wage of 4 to 5 liters. Temple records tracking the beer supply may have even been a catalyst for the world's first writing systems, all to keep the beer books balanced. This is the power of beer. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's first great stories, the wild man Enkidu becomes civilized only after he drinks beer. It was a symbol of joining society. For centuries, brewing was women's work. It was a domestic chore, just like baking bread. In medieval Europe, these alewives brewed for their families and sold their surplus. To signal a fresh batch was ready, they'd hang a branch or a broom, quote, an ale stake, outside their door. Their homes were the world's first pubs. Monasteries also became brewing powerhouses. Monks were allowed to drink beer during fasts, calling it liquid bread. They perfected recipes and kept meticulous records, creating some of the beer styles we still know today. But as beer became big business, the rules changed. In 13th century England, the government passed the Assize of Bread and Ale, a law to control the price and quality of beer. They even appointed official ale tasters to go from pub to pub, making sure no one was selling weak or overpriced brew. Tough job, right? Then came a revolution from Germany. Hops. Before this, brewers used all sorts of herbs to flavor their beer. But hops were different. They added a balancing bitterness and, more importantly, acted as a natural preservative. Suddenly, beer could last for weeks or months instead of days. This changed everything. Beer was no longer a local drink. It was a shippable product. A 12th century abbess named Hildegard von Bingen wrote extensively about the preserving power of hops, helping standardize their use. And in 1516, Germany passed Reinheitsgebot, the beer purity law, stating that beer could only contain water, barley, and hops. This was about quality control, but it also standardized production, allowing beer to scale like never before. This new stable hop beer was ready for the modern world. When the Industrial Revolution hit, lager, a beer style perfected in the cold caves of Bavaria, became the drink of choice. And in 1842, the creation of the world's first golden, clear Pilsner in the Czech town of Pilsen was a global phenomenon. It was crisp, refreshing, and consistent. Steam power, refrigeration, and bottling lines turned local breweries into industrial giants. Brands you still know today like Budweiser and Heineken were born. Beer even played a role in the foundation of America. One of the reasons pilgrims on the Mayflower landed at Plymouth was because, in their own words, they were running low on beer. In the lead up to the American Revolution, taverns were the headquarters for resistance, where plans like the Boston Tea Party were plotted over pints. This industrial scale came with a trade-off. By the 1970s, a few massive companies sold nearly identical pale lagers worldwide. The incredible diversity of beer was almost lost. And then something amazing happened. In garages and basements, a rebellion started. Homebrewers and small startups began defying the bland, seeking flavor instead of uniformity. This was the start of the craft beer revolution. They wanted bitter IPAs, rich stouts, and funky sours. They wanted to taste the difference between beer brewed in Belgium and one brewed down the street. Today, we're living in the most diverse beer era in history. From pastry stouts brewed with coffee and vanilla to sour ales aged in wine barrels. It's global and local, ancient and innovative. So the next time you raise your glass, remember what's inside. It's not just a drink. It's history. It's science. It's culture. It's civilization in a glass. If this video gave you a new appreciation for what's in your pint, consider following and subscribing. And if you have a favorite local brewery or a traditional beer from your culture, drop it in the comments, because this isn't just history, it's alive. And the next chapter is being brewed right now. If you want to see more videos about beer and mead, click one of my videos or playlists over here. It's full of detailed information that will level up your beer and mead making. Cheers. See you next video.